My name is Eitan Chatayat and welcome to I'm That podcast, where I get to talk to some pretty incredible people. Some are friends and colleagues, some are clients, and some are people I haven't even met yet. On I'm That, we'll hear from them about who they are, what they do and why, stuff they love or hate, mistakes they've made, victories they've had. They're all known for something, but by the time we're through, the hope is they'll have revealed some things we didn't know about them. Our talk may be deep, profound, funny, who knows really. One thing for sure, it'll be interesting and honest. So if you're up for that, thank you for joining me on I'm That, and here we go. Curt Simon has worked in over 40 markets for leading global brands and has driven incremental sales upwards of $2.5 billion. A professional networker, he's a well-known international speaker, strategist, writer, and solution engineer that spends a lot of his time helping incubators, startups, and digital hubs. Born in Germany, he founded his first digital company in 1994, and since then, he's followed that up with around 16 more, along with significant investments in digital organizations all around the world, specifically in Marcom, RPA, PA development, and data operations fields. His agency, Acom 360, was acquired in 2015 by Publicis Group, so he moved to London to lead their global business transformation team, where he stayed until 2020. Currently, he lives on a 17th century farm with his wife and 5 children, and is focused on merging the beauty of its past with the promise of everything future digital. He calls himself the Chief Nerd Officer and CEO of C5H. He's an advisory board member and consultant, and fervently believes that doing is the new consulting. Curtsy, because I call you Curtsy. Some people call you Curt, some people call you Simon. I call you Curtsy. It's so nice to have you here. Hi.
Hi, Eitan. It's so nice to have you. And I really appreciate that you have your own name for us, because we had a couple of absolutely stunning meetings, and we had a great time in Israel when I was over, and it was very bonding. And so I combine the name with the good memories.
Oh, good. Yeah, well, I mean, I think I got confused because I think at some point I heard Curt, at some point I heard Simon, and then I don't know how Curtsy came about, but it's nice to have my own nickname for you. But, you know, by the end of this, maybe more people will be calling you Curtsy as well. Look, you're a fascinating individual. And I think that it's not me that says that, because when we met as a part of Entrepreneurs Organization, which we're members of, I believe you're still a member.
Right.
So there's a group of people that met you when you came to Israel, and everyone was very taken with you. And I really want to get into that. But before I do, we'll start with the traditional question, which I always ask on the show, which is the title of the show. If you can please complete this sentence. I'm that
curious nerd. It's totally me. I'm driven by curiosity and blocks and ones and zeros, and like the digital world is opening so many doors, and it's fascinating. It's changing in minutes. So for me, it's an amazing time. I just get so much energy out of it.
First of all, I think, that a lot of people listening might not know that about you, and we'll talk about you. But yeah, I mean, you are, I think, a bit of a guru when it comes to data and machine learning and business intelligence and analytics for customers in all sorts of sectors. And you've got over almost 30 years of experience in this field in technology and digital. And I think maybe what would be great is if you can spend a little time just talking about how you came to be where you are, and maybe just a bit of a timeline so that we can get to know you.
I started in 1994 and in Düsseldorf, and there was the city which had some internet connections in 1994 for public. And so I got my first email address. It was simon@netscape.net. I was like, wow. And I founded my first agency and did websites. And then more and more, I learned that when you live without being in your comfort zone, it's very driving you, it's very motivated. And this is what drove me to say yes to things where my brain said, maybe not. My heart said, oh, gee. And my curiosity said, yeah, for sure, go for that. So I ended up being in China, working in China in the 90s and setting up an ERP program for a big private company in China. And used to live in Qingdao and spend a lot of time in Hong Kong and Guangzhou. and then I came back home. I was ill, and I jumped into the next adventure. So for me, it's like we had a discussion with one of my 5 kids, and I said, "What is boredom?" I said, "I have no clue what boredom is. I'm never bored. I know that people are bored, but I cannot understand. Have you seen me bored? I'm always doing something, read something, or try something, or talk to someone, or just do nothing, but not being bored, just enjoying doing nothing."
Which is interesting, because to me, like, I'm a creative, you know what it is that I do, and I do get bored. And it's funny because out of that boredom comes, for me anyway, the creativity comes. It's when I'm not doing anything, when I'm stopping, because I need to stop. I need to have that time to just have my brain settle down, and out of that quiet comes, oh, well, there's an idea, and then it goes from there. But you seem to be the opposite. You seem to be fueled by and I know you from what you do, like a nonstop drive. It's just relentless. Even and we'll talk about where you are now, which is interesting. You live on a farm, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But this farm is no normal farm. I mean, you're not resting on your farm and just chilling out. You're doing some crazy stuff there.
Yeah, but like this is my life. I was discussing with a friend of mine about what are the drivers, and I think self-fulfilling is something which is important to be happy in a relationship, and as well as for you personally. And the farm is one thing, but like to make it to my farm and to my place or my family place is another thing. So I live in a farm from the 17th century, from 1717. We had no heating here. We have no real fluid water, but like I have a fast internet connection, and I have so much tech here. Everything I put 1.6 kilometers of Ethernet connections all across the house. So
it's crazy.
We have 6K TV studio. We have everything automated.
People can't see it right now, but before we got on the call, you are in a studio that you have set up with multiple cameras, with a whole sound system set up, with acoustics. It's pretty amazing. When you showed me the office, it doesn't look like a 17th century farm. Is it 17th century?
Yeah.
But
except of the oven. The oven is, because we have no heating here, so I have to heat up, because we're in the mountains. I have to heat up the room by chopping wood. And
I want to ask you a question, because that's maybe an interesting segue. I mean, I know that one of the things I'd like to discuss with you is the coexistence of human and machine, and where that's going. But maybe an interesting segue is what you just described. You're fusing the old, like where you are, hundreds of years old farm, with tomorrow in your very abode, is very strong in you.
Absolutely. And it's also my profession, my passion, and my ambition. And so I try to combine that and see how we can match the human race and the human society with the machines and our environment. And that is something which keeps me going all the time. My brain cannot stop. I'm very glad that I learned about Tai Chi and the techniques, how to meditate and calm down. But also at the same time, I can strongly focus on topics and can handle a lot of different information at the same time. And this, what comes together here is like seeing the sunset of an outstanding environment, but knowing that whatever I want to do, whatever I want to build, I'm able to do here. And I can give a safety place for my family. We can grow our own food. We have our own water. We have our own power supply. But on the other hand, we are connected with the whole world. And it's not only for a video conference or for a podcast. I can work from here. I can connect with people, collaborate, develop, invent. So that is, for me, it is paradise.
Tell me a few of the things that you've achieved and some of the things that you've accomplished in building, what it is that you're most well known for, so that before we get into the topics that we're going to discuss, to get a better sense of who you are in terms of the practical things that you're good at and what you've actually delivered to the world.
Yes. Mainly people come to me and say, hey, I would like to solve that. And then we don't find the solution which exists. And then I say, okay, I can do that. And I'm a very logic thinking person and try to combine experiences and opinion from strong opinion leaders or thought leaders into a solution. And my motto is keep it simple, make it real. So doing is the new consulting. It's not talking about it, do it. And I think over the last 30 years, what you said, I built one of the first big infrastructures for B2B websites. I was one of the first clients of Facebook. I did some knowledge democratization projects for a big automotive brand. I solved a couple of big issues for local communities. And I always look, as you said, I'm a solution engineer. For me, it's to how can I build solutions on what exists? And this is what I have here. I have a farm from the 17th century, but this, I don't need much more. It's everything here. It's just, what can I do what I have? And that fulfills me, makes me super happy. I'm still ordering too much on Amazon because it's delivered next day, unfortunately here, but I don't need that. So I could stay here as I went to Burning Man and be out of the whole digital world and all of the connections at Burning Man just for 2 weeks and enjoying nature and people and music and art and getting impressions and fill up my energy level with new inspirations and combine that with requests I have in my daily life.
Until recently, you were working closely with Volkswagen, right?
Volkswagen, Mercedes, and BMW I had in the last couple of years, yeah.
So can you tell me what you were doing with them?
Difficult. Let's say I came up with all of the big companies. It's not only on the automotive side. They all struggle because they are caught in their own bubble. They don't have enough impulses coming in from outside, a different view. And there is one phrase which drives these corporations, which is, we have always done it like that. And I'm breaking up this. And this is my achievement, that I'm able to come up with a solution which works with the infrastructure, with the people, the mindset, to shift the mindset, to shift the infrastructure, and to get the right people involved. And I think this is my talent.
One of your talents.
Yeah,
one of your many talents. I'd love to hear about where the world is going in terms of us, people, humanity, or human beings, and machines. The melding of the two worlds. It's terrifying for someone like me, you know?
For me too. Like, what is the most terrifying part is that we have the good and the evil side. And the good side is afraid of getting the one step ahead because of some ethical questions, of some giving control away, risking something, getting in an uncomfort zone, which is the other side is not caring about that too much and is drying out a lot. And especially when it comes to all these advanced technologies, and I'm not talking about artificial intelligence because we are pretty far away from a real artificial intelligence, but mainly because we are too afraid to hand the decision-making into a machine which is optimizing itself and is running on itself, because we would lose the control. I'm talking about that people are not valuing how much better we could do the world with having this kind of technology in place, doing work to support sustainability, to be more effective, to allow, for example, in a house, to control lights, heating, water, whatever. Just if everyone would make use of that kind of technology, which is not too advanced, we could save a lot of our resources.
Well, when does it go from not too advanced to too advanced?
Yeah.
You know, something controls your lights. And the fear is out of, not knowing how this thing works and not being in control, because we like to be in control, that something else is controlling your lights. But okay, those are lights. The next thing is your car. The next thing is autonomous flying drones, no pilot. And I'm not talking about delivering stuff from Amazon. I'm talking about like one of those drones landing on my front lawn, the door opening, I sit inside and it flies me with no pilot somewhere, which we're 15 years away from that probably, or 10 years, something like that.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah, there are three lines. The first line is when it leaves the rule-based setup, where you have a strict rule structure and it follows only the rules. So this is what I call is the basic setup, which is for lights or for heating, or if the sun is shining or the weather forecast says this, then please turn down the heating. The second is where different rule sets interfere. Like if you say autonomous driving, where different cars have different rule sets. That is the new level, but still a rule level. And then when it comes to that, the cars decide if yes or no, not on a rule base, more on the information they have, and they start to interpret and make their own decisions and optimize against it out of individual learnings or infrastructure learnings or mass information, crowd wisdom. So there is the third line. And then when this starts to get fully automated, only a small impact through the human race itself.
Well, that's the bit that's scary. I mean, we all know Terminator. We all know that scenario where artificial intelligence starts deciding things. And I'm just wondering how far away we are from that. Not novels, not stories, but really, like when we see those Boston, what's that company, the Boston Robotics, where you see the dogs? Yeah. I can't remember. Yeah. Is that what they call Boston Robotics? Or
yeah.
Like people like those, and they just had the ones of them dancing. I was terrified. I was like, this actually isn't funny. I'm not enjoying watching this at all. You know, they're opening doors, they're doing backflips. What else are they going to do? You know?
Yeah, but like this is not the part which terrifies me. It's more when you try to build human organs within animals, like they tried in Japan, for example. So they interfere more with genealogy, artificial intelligence, or they try to build somehow intelligent robots, because there you still can have a emergency turn-off.
So going back to the question, which was like, how will the coexistence of humans and machines develop?
It will take longer than I expect it to be, because till all generations see a value out of it without being afraid and without losing their comfort zone and the convenience. Because first you have to train systems to get them to do what you want, not what maybe a brand wants or a technology wants. This is a lot of efforts, and we are not willing to bring all the efforts into this technology part at this stage. To train in intelligence, you have to have a lot of data to benchmark and compare and combine, and then see the results and say if it's good or bad, yes or no.
So I have an interesting thing to share with you, which taps into the next thing that we can talk about, which is basically the masses of information in the future, and maybe already now, data. And how is it being controlled by human beings, or is it being controlled by, let's call it, the machine? People create these machines to make our lives easier, robotic process automation. How are we doing there? Like, how is that being, handled? The amount of information that is out there, and how we probably can't process it ourselves. And so machines are going to be doing that. I look at the example I wanted to give was when I created a film with a friend of mine called She's That Woman, and we posted it on Facebook, and Facebook started suppressing it. We saw that it was going viral, but the algorithm suppressed it for a number of reasons, because of content mainly. Fine. But the issue was when we reached out to Facebook, and I got to some very influential people, they couldn't, even though they saw that it shouldn't be suppressed, they had difficulty getting it unsuppressed. And in fact, their teams had difficulty getting it unsuppressed. And every time they unsuppressed it, it got suppressed again. And then you realize after 20 or 30 emails and exchanges, I got the feeling that they weren't in control of the quote unquote, the algorithms, the data, the machine.
Yeah, it's not the control, it's only the effort they have to do for the one incident or issue or topic, to do that effort for you to knock out the whole system, which they set up as a standard. And that probably made all the complexity of it. If we are seen as individuals and everything is treated as an individual, this will not be able to be handled, because
which is the scary thing for me. And that's exactly it. It was like, we are individuals. I do want the individual people to see this. I do want you to handle this. And they want to, and they were trying to, but the system isn't built to be managed that way. That was kind of a little worrying to me.
Yeah, but coming back to that question you asked, where massive information and data is going to, is it's on one hand the amount of data, which is not the issue. It's more about validating that the quality of the massive data is serving your needs or your topics. And that only can be done in this scale by computers again, that they can benchmark, compare, validate, and hate speech. Or we had seen this when the US last president came up with some news. You really had to check if this is real. Like, you're not checking if this is not real. You were checking if it's real. And in this mass of information we have out there, this is the hard part, because you have to connect it with so many different sources, so many different contextual information. And then we have to see what is the timeline behind the information. So how old is that? Is it still valid? Is this data point, in what context is it collected? Yeah, and all of that gives a huge complexity, which can only be handled by machines, because humans will take too long to come up with a decision or with a reaction somehow. It's a good question. Where do we define a standard to benchmark all this kind of information? It needs to be kind of a new level of Wikipedia for defining, yes, it's true or not. Or it's true for me, but maybe not for Eitan. Because this could be also something, because there's all the cultural levels coming in. Maybe for Christians is this, for Jewish people is this, for Muslims this. Maybe it doesn't apply at all.
Well, and there are billions of people and there are billions of different variables.
Yeah. Time is the most underrated influence of all data and information. So when I was working, for example, for one of the big automotive companies, and they showed me their data and said, where is the timestamp for all the information you have? And they said, we collected this data set 5 years ago. And I said, yeah, but do you have the timestamp for, and then it got some changes. And then you have timestamps when you have changed this and that. I said, no. I say, yeah, but the phone number is probably outdated after 5 years, an email maybe after 7 or 10 years, an address maybe after 3 or 4 years. But you have to know how old the data is. This is changing. The world is turning. You have to make sure that you bring that in the right framing.
How does not having that time, I'll be the idiot in the room. Well, I am the idiot in the room. How is that not good, not having that time? What are the ramifications of not having those timestamps? Context is important, knowing when this happened and why.
Yeah, and where, with whom, under what circumstances. Was it on the way to work? Yeah, well, was I on a commute? So I only had 2 minutes and it was a quick decision, spontaneous, or was I sitting at home and I had a lot of time to think about it because I came back 3 times?
Well, that's interesting. I mean, one of the other things that I wanted to ask you about was the role of creative thinking in this realm, in these different businesses. And it takes thinking, what you just said about time. Someone has to think of these things, right?
Yeah. But time is only one thing, which was one of my thoughts and is one of my key. This is what is so fascinating, that I don't believe that we will come up with a standard solution to validate information within the next 10 or 20 years. For 1, 2, 3% of the data we have, we can make sure that this is correct.
Can you give an example so that the average person like me can understand an example?
And for example, you say, okay, the month of February was the warmest in the last 40 years. But one day was unfortunately on 56 degrees, which never happened. But all other days are in a combination are in average higher than the years before, because one data point was not correct, or is the lowest because we had minus 20 degrees or whatever. So there's one fault in, or one manipulation, or if someone is turning the wheel for the volume higher, but changes the marks, then you have different benchmarking, and you believe that what is printed or what you've seen on TV or what was in the newspaper is valid, and you have never checked it again or back, or you took off the pin and see, oh, the volume is actually lower or higher. So this is what happens a lot in politics, in business, in security.
How does that happen in politics? What's an example of?
One example was Trump. Trump was very smart, or his team was very smart on tackling certain groups of people. So they were showing videos, targetings to a certain group where someone was talking bad about this group of their opponents. So people had the perception that they were in general talking bad about this group, but they only took one piece out of a speech and showed it particular to this group. All the others saw a different piece. So this created a perception because it was only one piece out of a big block of information. So there's the missing piece, or they drown people with information so that they don't know which information are real or more important than the others, because there's just too much of information.
So we're talking about the manipulation of the truth.
Yeah, in this case, it's still the truth, but it's not in context, or gives you a hard time to define what is the truth. And then they do it in a smart way that if you have too many informations available that you cannot decide, and then there's one easy piece to consume, it's super convenient, and then because of the convenience factor,
it's like it's the world that we're living in is it's not as simple as it used to be. It feels like things are getting more complicated.
Yeah, complicated, I wouldn't say. It's more that the availability of information, the dynamics of how things travel, spread across borders, across time. There's no one out there anymore. Normally we had those societies where they were living in their own bubble.
Mm-hmm.
Now, through the internet, everyone has access to any kind of information at any time. With that given, it's a full information overflow. And for people, this is a huge challenge to work that in their brain. A lot of people get depressed because they cannot handle it anymore.
It's very intimidating.
Absolutely.
But you don't seem fazed by it. I think you're maybe in your comfort zone because you understand this, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people
absolutely afraid.
So what can people do to quell that fear? People like me, feeling so much turmoil and everything feels out of control because of the way that information spreads today, because people are targeting people and they're saying this to this demographic and that to that demographic. And you see it playing out on the biggest stage. You see it playing out in politics. The narratives are, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. But like, it's a very, very good example how to explain how this is tackling us. Is if you think of, look, there's the moon and there is the sun, and the sun belongs to a sun system, and there is a galaxy, and maybe there's more galaxies and more galaxies. And you start thinking further and further, and it gets bigger and bigger. And then in the moment you say, gee, what are we? Who are we? We're tiny atoms in maybe a body of a god, or we're a blood cell in whatever. You start comparing to get a kind of a relationship. People are afraid because it's got so big and so transparent and so, on one hand and the other hand, so totally not understandable anymore, that people get back into a smaller bubble than before to feel comfortable. It could be consuming a lot of media, or consuming, buying a lot of stuff on Amazon. So finding some replacements to keep the mind on certain products, but going away from being open. And this is what is worrying me mostly, that the media world and the business world and consumers world is totally aware of that. It's making use of it. And there's a big shift in the whole marketing and politics, and it's not need driven anymore. People, the basic needs does not matter. It's rarely that these are addressed. It's mainly addressing the intentions and motivation of certain people, because this is in an on-demand world driving the conversion. So they are looking what at the moment where I have the touch point, the moment I'm in kind of an exchange, or they have them in my ecosystem, what is driving them? And then addressing this motivation to drive them in a different stage towards my goal, or to drive them towards a certain information. Because then it's easier. It's so easy to consume that because it's addressing me where I am. So if I have bought a pair of runners, and then I get offered a pair of, like, a voucher for fitness bars, then the motivation is existing, and I just go, oh yeah, it's good, yeah. And now it's the shoes, and now I need my bars, and this kind of methodology is not only in marketing or sales. This is in politics. This is in business. It's all around. It's all about
control.
Control and information. To make use of information.
It's interesting because I feel that many times people say, I don't feel like I'm in control anymore. Like what you were saying about like the galaxy getting bigger and bigger and you getting smaller and smaller, like there's no structure anymore. So you feel less in control. And it's very interesting. How can that be changed?
Education is one part.
Mm-hmm.
Like helping the people to not believe whatever they see. So more questioning it and also allowing people to have an opinion.
Which is something that I've been talking about a lot lately with my family and a few people, how, especially in America, I don't know how in Europe where you are, but like this notion of having an opinion and being very, very careful about it, because of the masses, because what people will say about you, if you express something which is, God forbid, not consistent with their belief system, then you can literally be ostracized from your digital community, from friendships, from the certain things that you're not meant to say. So I think it's super important to ask questions and to question and to have an opinion. But it's this digital world that we live in that is actually making it more difficult.
Yeah, on one hand, on the other hand, you're afraid of being alone because you have an opinion and not getting that feedback you want and that gives you the confidence you need. And
the like button.
The like button is a super smart psychology model. For me, yes, I like. There's nothing bad about it.
Let me ask you another question and shift gears. You're an entrepreneur. You're a serial entrepreneur. You've bought a lot of companies. In the context of entrepreneurship, what's the most difficult thing that you've ever gone through? And if you have any advice for anyone who is looking to go out on their own?
Yeah.
So what's the most difficult thing, or one of the most difficult things that you went through as an entrepreneur?
For sure, the most difficult one was when I was too naive going to China. I had a big contract, believed that my contract was good and believed in the humanity and that people are fair. And came back home and had a lot of credits open, lost a lot of money. But that taught me a very important lesson. So the questioning started then. And I learned so much in China. And I've learned so much from this time that all the companies I founded or where I was a shareholder or I'm still a shareholder gave me different view so that I question more, but also trust more into my people than the people I'm dealing with. So and giving me that confidence and building up this trust within my ecosystem is something, in average, it's that very successful for me. Of course, there were disappointments, but like there were a lot of influences. I had 2 bankruptcies in over 60 companies, which I think is a very good average. Couple of IPOs, and some are doing good, some are doing better, some are still fighting, but like all over that worked very well. And my advice for people starting into the entrepreneur's world is focus. Focus on what you do, believe and challenge what you're capable of, and for everything else, find people who you believe and where you trust and where you have proof that they are able to do that. Do only what you can do. And don't do what you can do, because this takes too much time and effort. And it's good if you learn about it, but you will not learn as fast as someone has done it for 20 years or 15 years. You cannot replace experience with the ambition and passion a young entrepreneur has. So I think this is the combination you have to bring in.
That's great advice. Where were you? Where were you 15 years ago in my life? I have another question for you. Role models, personal, famous, someone you met, someone you've never met, you listen to, books you've read?
Oh, yeah. I didn't read so many books. I'm not a reader. I'm more a listener while running or listen to people, more have conversations, which gives me additional to the book. I'd like to talk about books with people because they tell me their perspective of the book. So I know the person and I know how the person sees the book. And that gives me 2 new layers, which I love. I met a couple of my role models, and one I haven't met and I want still to meet. I've met Ban Ki-moon in a plane and was chatting with him.
Oh, wow.
This was quite, because we had one person both knew, a Korean person, and this gave us a connection. So that helped a lot to have deep conversations about his time in Austria and the world is where we're heading to and what is he's afraid of. And it was a very intimate session, not too long because it was in a plane. I said, wow, this was a great moment I will never forget. I would like to meet the Dalai Lama once because his calmness and how he has this aura around him is fascinating me. So I would like to get some kind of inspiration out of that. Also, I like the Buddhism not as a religion, but like more as a philosophy, how you treat other people. And I like the idea of karma, so that you pay in, so that you give more than you expect to get back. Because if everyone would do that, the whole world would change tremendously. So that's also one of my philosophies in life. And my mom was a role model. Unfortunately, I lost her too early, and I haven't spent too much time in the last years with her because being too busy. So that gave me a lot of thinking and changed my life tremendously as well. And then I took more time for myself since then, because as you said, I'm always under power and but with Burning Man, for example, and went out there and I was just sitting there for hours and thinking and be myself and not being bored, but like being myself. And that is something I've learned over the years and changed my view on the world. And I need this time. Even if I work, I can have this time. So on the weekend, I was chopping wood, but like for hours and hours and hours, it was not the most interesting work, but like having time for myself made this work so easy. Then I came home and I felt like, oh, gee, I'm nearly 50 and my back and my hands and my legs and my say, okay. But like, yeah, but and there's so many role models out there for different reasons, that I try to find within every person I meet, which I believe that I have some trust in their faith and in their doing, that I find a role model. It's not that I have one idol out there. The whole human race is for me fascinating and playing a lot of different role models. Inspiration. And I'm so curious to learn about people. I'm so good listener.
You really are a curious nerd.
Yeah.
No, but actually but yeah, exactly. But what you're saying is really quite beautiful and idealistic. And to me, I hear someone who's trying to live through your ideals and taking from everybody the best of what it is that they have to offer. And I think that's a beautiful thing. Curtsy, I have one more question, just one. What's going on with you? What's next for you? What are you doing? What are you excited about?
I'm first absolutely excited that I was so humbled and lucky to grow my family to 5 kids. So I have 2 small kids at home, which I have a smile every day, wake up and every evening. And this is like, wow, this is driving me. It was here in the farm, being in paradise, being blessed with so many good friends and people around me, having such a respectful relationship to my ex-wife and with all of my kids. And I have a lot of real friends all around the world. I can't say how thankful I am for that. What I want to build and what drives me is to make this farm here a place to meet, where people come, where I can inspire, where they get inspired, where they can take something of my life back home, of our lives here, from our nature and our vibes and our flow and our energy. I'd like to share that. So this drives me, like, and I want to be a spreader of inspiration and energy.
I personally think that you're there, my friend. I personally think that you're there. Really, I really appreciate you taking the time. I'm so grateful that you did. And I'm also very grateful for our relationship, Curtsy. You really do inspire. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I'm super happy being friends with you. And even my wife has not met you. But like she said, yeah, oh, wow, this is that Jew. I said, yeah, that's that Jew. Oh, he's a good one, yeah. So he gives you a smile. I said, yeah, he does. Every time. Every message I get, I'm happy about it.
Thank you, Curtsy. I'll be talking to you soon. Thanks a lot for your time.
Yeah, thank you as well. Bye.
Bye-bye. Well, that's it. Thanks for listening to I'm That Podcast. Go ahead and subscribe to the show on iTunes, and if you like, leave a rating and review. Tune in for the next episode, and see you soon.